So I love this area over here, and I love how all the murals are just so colorful. It just adds like a vibrancy to it. But Thai Orchid is a spot that I've been coming to for years. I can't wait for you to try it. Neighborhood spot right in Southeast off of Pennsylvania Avenue. So it should be a good, enjoyable spot for you. Yes, I am so excited. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, let's get in.
Thank you.
Okay, do you mind if I like do a little unboxing?
Oh no, go right
Okay.
ahead. All of our utensils.
Thank
there.
you.
All right, I'll pull everything out so you know. All right, so this, oh, we got beef patsy, right?
Yes, yes.
I'll put your
Ooh,
request.
oh my God, that's gorgeous.
Here we go, and then
That's literally beautiful.
in the sampler.
Mm-hmm.
This
Okay.
should have a little bit of everything in there. You got it?
Yeah. Okay. Can you help?
All right.
Oh yes.
So this is
Okay.
what I love.
Was this the puff, the curry
That's the
puff?
curry
Okay.
Yes. I did.
Nice.
That is a curry puff.
And I love that there's two of
Got the
everything, so we
shrimp
can
rolls,
try.
some dumplings.
Okay.
Yeah. Should be good to go. All right, so
Nice.
let's sit on the sauces here. All right, let's start digging in.
Yes, please.
I'm so glad you made the time for us to hang out today.
Thank you so much for bringing me to a place that I've been meaning to
So,
try.
I know, right? Like, I love Thai Orchid is just a perfect neighborhood spot.
Mm-hmm.
Like right off of Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast. And it's just family run, and you can just grab some good Thai food and just keep it moving, you know?
And I love that they still have like the stuff that people in the neighborhood also want to eat. Like they got seafood platter,
Right.
the combos. Like
Right.
yes, please.
Yes. Everything that you possibly need. So we're gonna chat about you today, Cornelia, right?
Okay.
So here's the thing. So you've worked in agriculture, you worked in health, wellness, pharmaceutical. So why food? Like how did we even end up at this spot?
Yes. How did this all kind of come together? So
Yes. Yeah. You
when-
want me to
oh
grab
yeah,
this
we
really
can.
quick for you?
Oh yeah, we can start digging in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I first started, I was working.
Use that for it too, like
True. Yeah, that's helpful.
easier.
When I very first started blogging, I was working in agriculture as a consultant. And I realized like a lot of my clients, especially at that time, were not on Instagram. Everyone was on Facebook and Twitter. This is harder than I thought it was gonna be.
One spoon, or yeah, just grab it and
Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna need to. Yeah, they were only on Facebook and Twitter, and I was getting nervous that like my Instagram skills would like literally atrophy, considering that, you know, I wanted to be proficient at social media. I was like, okay, I need to start using Instagram in a personal capacity so that I could be up to date on the changing kind of trends and stuff. And that was really where it came from. I was like, you know, I enjoy food. Me and my friends were always going out to eat anyways. So I was like, that should be pretty accessible. It's not going to take me too far out of my way. Okay, I'm going to
Of course you are. Food
So,
blogger here.
yeah.
Expect nothing less, right?
So yeah, so that was really what started it, and
Right.
I kind of I still do it for fun, but it was really just for fun, and it still is just for fun. It's just
Right.
something I enjoy doing.
Right.
So yeah.
So, okay. So we're going to go back to the beginning, of course. Because your parents are from Ghana.
Yes.
And we have some interesting stories about...
Okay, I'm so excited to try this.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, dig in. You have some interesting stories just about how you felt about your food
Oh my
as a
God.
kid.
This is
You
so
like
good.
it? Okay. So you're going to be coming here again,
You were right. Oh,
For
yeah.
sure?
Mhm.
Definitely. I told you. So tell me about that. Like, just growing up and enjoying that food. Did you enjoy it then? Or was it just okay? Or is it something that grew on you?
I 100% took it for granted. I don't think I thought about food as deeply as I do now.
Got it.
My mom didn't love cooking. She did it because she had to.
Right.
And so I never really developed that. And to be honest, I still don't love cooking, but now I just love food. I enjoy
Right.
trying food.
Cool. Got it.
Yeah. But yeah, I took it for granted. It was just like, the jollof will always be there, the soups, the stews, they'll always be there. And now that I've like had the opportunity to try food from different cultures and taste the differences and the similarities and like literally connect the diaspora through food, it has been such a privilege. Yeah, so like seeing the similarities between like South American, Caribbean food with African food, and it's just like, that's awesome, you know? So I 100% appreciate it more now. And like, yeah, I just feel like everything that I eat now has more of a meaning than I used to think about it. Yeah.
So you remember days like when was mom cooking more or dad?
Mom, for sure.
Okay. So long, slow stews, cooking on the stove all day.
Oh my gosh.
You like that? I gotta try that one.
It's like a peanut.
Now, interesting. You have a peanut sauce too.
In Ghana, peanut soup is very popular. Again, another thing I just took for granted, and like seeing peanuts, I don't even think I liked it, to be honest. But seeing it like through another culture's eyes, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really cool, like, you know, incorporation of this ingredient. I just never really gave much thought to. Yeah.
Right. So, growing up, so you have the culture that you grew up with, you know, and the foods that you grew up with. And in school, was that something that, were you one of the kids that would take your food to school that mom made and you were cool with eating it, or did you feel like kind of strange eating it in front of kids, or did you not even think about it? I always hear sometimes kids, you know, they feel ashamed of like what their parents pack them. You know, they want to have, I don't know, a PB&J when you have this whole 3-course meal and you don't even really want it. So how did you feel?
So I never brought food to school. We were on the farm program, free and reduced meals. So I always got food at school. But when friends came over or something like that, or we had like a potluck, like I was very embarrassed to like bring food.
Were you?
Yeah. It really wasn't until like college when I didn't have access to like free flowing food because you know, you're in college, like you're struggling. And then like my mom would make me food and I was like, okay, like you know, if somebody asks me questions, I'll just answer them, you know, and I kind of started getting more exposure to other cultures. And so it helped me realize that everyone's food is different.
Right. And then did you begin to feel, did you ever get that comfort when you were going to school, or did you ever get to that point where you were fine with eating your food, or did that not exist to you and become a thing or reality for you until later in life, as you know, got older, like maybe teenager, or maybe like after being a teenager later?
100% it is a more recent thing. And I say that because West African food is trendy now, and it's everywhere. But like, even if I would invite my friends over to our our house for anything, I would be like, okay, this is jollof and this is what it's made of, and they're like, I've eaten rice before. But it just, to me, I was like, that must be such a gap, you know, between what you know and what my parents are serving you. But yeah, it took me like, and even when I started my blog, like, there wasn't that many West African restaurants, and I was kind of nervous to kind of, you know, go into it too much or talk about it too much. But now I feel so much more comfortable with it, and I know that other people feel comfortable with it, and I don't have to do as much explaining. But I still take that, like, I still feel like maybe because I felt such a dissonance with like my own culture's food, that's why when I try food, like when I try weaker food, as I did last year, or some other like Laotian food or something that's like less common, I'm excited to talk about it, because I'm like, look at, you know, here is the ways that this is similar, and here's why this item is unique or different. Yeah.
So were you ever able to go to Ghana? Okay.
So I've been to Ghana, I think 3-ish times, 3 or 4 times.
In any like when you left each experience, each time, did you feel like just a little bit, like, how did that make you feel? Like, towards the food? Did that change things, the dynamics, make you understand it more, love it more?
I think, I think going to Ghana definitely helped me appreciate the culture as a whole. There was a time when I was younger where I didn't want to tell people how to pronounce my last name, right? I didn't want to correct them. And I didn't want to like explain that that Ghana is in Africa or whatever. But every time I went and I just got a better understanding of like, these are people, they live in their country, they're proud of their country, they're proud of their home, they're proud of their food. It helped me kind of grow pride. You know, kids are embarrassed over dumb stuff. So it just kind of helped me grow more and more prideful. But even when I was going as a kid, I was like not really appreciative of like the food, but like the most recent time I went was in 2017, and that time I was very appreciative of the food. I was very appreciative of like the ingredients that I can't get here.
What changed you with that time though versus other times? Was it just maybe maturity?
Yeah, just maturing and like understanding like that the world is like a really big place. And I think that was what, like, I had such an American centric mindset. And it's like burgers, fries, pasta, you know? And it's like just growing up and realizing like, and going to college and meeting people from other cultures who had such deep knowledge of their country and you know their history of colonialism or not, or their history of independence, and you know what their country's strengths are, what their country's trades are, their country's relationship with the United States. And I was like, oh wow, I don't know any of that. And that really helped me realize like, yeah, the world is just a really big place, and America's not the most important country on the planet. And that was kind of what made me start to be more appreciative. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I remember when, this was years ago, I was in Spain, and I was taking some classes there. I remember meeting this girl, she was from Israel. We were just outside, like chilling in one of the plazas, just talking, eating. There was a group of us. Some kind of way we got on what it's like growing up and understanding what your country has been through, right? And then she starts telling us literally the history of Israel from this point to this point, and how everyone has to, you know, go into the military, even the women, and at a certain age and all of this. And to listen to her spout off their history, I remember thinking, I was having the same conversation here in the States. I don't know if at that time we were probably maybe 18, or most of us were about maybe between 18 and 20. I don't know if you would have had that thorough American history conversation.
And understanding, exactly.
Right. And really feeling like this connection. And of course, we have our reasons for that, especially with being Black people here in America. There are
100%.
Thousands of reasons for that. But still, just the basic knowledge of why a country is where it is, why the political views are what they are, why you love it, good. So like why all of these things are, or things have occurred, to have some sort of understanding or some basis. And that just shocked me. Like it really did shock me. And I was thinking, wow, this isn't America. That like this is so different from what I'm accustomed to. I'm used to hear how a teenager understands all of that.
Yes, and that's such, I love the way you put that, because I think it was also like, this is another like turning point for me, was like when I was, the first time I visited London, I was just like a kid or whatever. My mom was able to take us, and hearing my cousin talk about England, and he knew his history, and he he was not impressed by the United States at all. And I was like, excuse me, like the center of the universe? But he just did not care. And that was also a moment where I was like, okay, so there are other people who like don't revere the United States as much as I do as a person who lived there. And then just like you're saying, right, like other people are the center of their universes, and we just don't learn that here. We're not really, we're not really
connected,
taught
so
to be connected to other
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I don't know. Sometimes, of course, like it might start at home, and with how parents and what parents are teaching kids at home, and if they take the time to go through some of that, because even though we do have this torrid history here, but it's a history nonetheless, right? So we should know it. Like we should, like be able to at least speak to some of it. You know, we don't have to be a historian, but I do appreciate that aspect that I found through traveling,
100%.
through other younger people, and that they at least have that viewpoint and knowledge of it. So that I think is dope, and I really respect that.
May I ask you, like, did you ever have a time where you felt like, oh, as a Black American, like I don't have a history, or like I don't have a culture, or did you ever have go through that?
Hell yeah, for sure. Because even, I mean, I don't know, I think all of us have probably had that class where that teacher says, okay, this is going to be your project. You have to tell us about where your family's from. And most of us don't know. So they'll ask us, okay, like, where are your parents from, or where are your grandparents from, or what foods do you fix at home, and like, what do most of us come in with? Like the standard, I hate to say it, fried chicken, greens, but that's what we had, right? But as I've gotten older, and because of my interest, and I also have to say, because I did undergrad at Howard, so I had these mad cool African American history classes that just opened my mind and broadened my perspective on things, where I really began to dive in and learn about more about our culture, more about our history, more about the foodways and all of that. And I hope that I've transferred at least some of that knowledge to my sons, you know. But yeah, I definitely felt like that. I definitely felt like we didn't really have a culture, and that's kind of why I dig into all the ancestry stuff and all the research, and just trying to find out as much as I can, because it's kind of interesting, because some people, even if they know, they feel that they don't need to know. Like it doesn't really matter to them, so to speak. But for me, the more I found out and the more I learned, I think it's pretty dope. I think it makes you feel some sort of connection. You know, like when I found out that on my maternal side, going back, I don't know, about 1,000, 1,500 years that I'm Yoruba, that makes me feel pretty dope.
Wow.
When I found out that on my dad's maternal side, that we are, oh my goodness, not Eritrean, Somali.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty dope to just know that information. Okay, now, do we really have a close connection to that? No, not necessarily, but I still think it makes you feel a certain way as a person to know that you are from a certain group of people. You are from a certain group of people that have this culture, or have this food, or have this religious background. It gives you some sort of grounding in your life. I mean, whether you use that common knowledge every day doesn't really matter, but just to know that and to be able to say, as a kid, if your teacher asks you for this project, you can say that instead of feeling kind of lost, like, because in some respects I do feel like we really are lost people sometimes. So I don't know, like, I don't mean to sound like a downer on the subject, but I do think it's important for us to learn as much as we can, you know, and I think it makes you just more of a whole person, just knowing that information, knowing that we didn't just pop up over here. Like we had families, we had connections, we had ties, we had culture, we had history, we had languages, we had all of these things. So we're more than just what people try to portray us to be. If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And your perspective, I've heard both, right? Like I have friends who are like, oh yeah, like, you know, my family's from North Carolina, and that's all that is, you know?
Right.
And I also understand that perspective too, like not wanting to feel like being a Black person in America is enough. You know, and even my husband is Jamaican, and technically, you know, Jamaican people were not like they weren't just on Jamaica, you know, but they don't really feel the need to like go back and do DNA and figure out what parts of Africa they're from. And of course, a huge part of that is because they're in a predominantly black country, and they feel close ties to their, to the culture that they've created there. But yeah, so I understand both
Yeah,
perspectives
it's
for
definitely
sure.
a couple sides when you look at it,
Yeah.
and that's, it's always good just to hear both and just understand both, whether or not you agree.
Right.
It's just, having that empathetic ear
Yeah,
to hear both.
yeah.
So tell me, so how did, when Black Girl Eats, because first you started as Black Girl Explore, right?
I started as Black Girl Eats DC,
Eats
and
DC.
then I became Black Girls Explore DC.
Tell me how that kind of formulated and like matriculated in your mind. Because food must have been somewhere just like simmering throughout you.
So, you're saying like, how did I get started, or like?
Yeah, just like what even just put the idea in your mind?
I was always going out to eat with my friends. Like, we just love going out. At my absolute poorest, I would go out to eat. That was like my thing for myself. Like, I didn't need new clothes, I didn't need new shoes. I always went out to eat. Like, you ready for brunch? Let's go, girl. And yeah, so that was always like a bonding thing that me and my friends did. And so that was easily accessible to me. Like I said, like, I'm not like a fashion person. I'm not like into makeup or even arts and crafts or anything. But
Food was a thing.
Yeah, I love food, and of course I'm not unique in that, but it was just accessible to me. And so that was kind of what I wanted to do. And when I initially started, I also was too nervous to do it by myself. I was too nervous to like create like a persona online. So I was like, okay, well, me and my best friend, we're the two that always go out to eat. So I was like, okay, maybe she could do it with me. And so that was when we started. I was like, okay, let's do it together. And so we did it together for like a year and a half, I think. But she really wasn't that into it.
But you stuck with it. You kept doing it.
Yeah, I think like I've learned so much, and food blogging has taken me to the crevices of this city, to parts of Virginia, up into Maryland. Like, I've just learned so much.
So tell me like one of your most interesting or unique experiences, like on this journey that you've been on and throughout the DMV and exploring the food.
Oh gosh. That, I feel like I would have to like sit down and reflect on that. Because something always comes up. But one thing that was really fun was like last year, and that's another thing too, is like it's never just food, right? So last year,
It's never just food. Like we were brought together kind of through food, but it was more so like this, like your story, like your life, and just if you look at things we've just talked about, it's really not just about food, but food is kind of that right, the common thread. Yeah, most def.
So there was a producer, a director who was doing his world premiere of his musical, and he invited me and a few other food bloggers and food writers, and the chef Carla Hall, and like I could not have imagined, like I ran into Carla Hall one time and I was like, man, like the next time I see her, it's gonna be behind a table, like trying to get her autograph or something like that. We were at dinner, like chatting it up, and, because yes, it was a musical, but it was a musical about a family, and what was that family doing? Cooking. And so it's like I was able to like come and find this way in. So it's like it's never about food. Like I've gone on like tours that was really fun. I got invited to just do a tour of DC, and like we were put on like a really like a luxury like tour bus, and we got to go all around and learn all these fun facts about the city. And I just get to do random stuff all the time. Like next week I'm hosting a book conversation with an author. Again, it's just random stuff, but it's like because people feel connected to you over food, they want you to be involved in other things they're doing.
Right, in their life and in their world. Yeah, that's the thing about food. Like, it's less about the food that's actually on the plate and more about like the people behind it or the people that are surrounding it in any kind of way. But I think you're so right about that.
Fantastic.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. Make sure when you try to curry puff to use some of that.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that I love about it, because it's not like, it's one thing to get your good IG shots and you know, the food is looking like delicious and phenomenal and you can see the steam rising off. But it's another thing when you're really able to talk to the people behind it, or just over that food, just talk to someone about their lives. And I feel that it's a way to really open up a dialogue and really be able to communicate with people on a level that it's just so unintrusive, and people are so open, you know?
That is so true. That's 100% true. Like, you're reminding me, I feel like I got really lucky last weekend. I went to 2 places that day, but it wasn't just the fact that I went there. It was like both times I got to speak to an owner and a manager, and I could tell I felt like I could tell their whole personality just by how much they would talk about their food. So at the first place, the guy, his name is Topher, and he opened a seafood restaurant, and he was just telling me about like all the different like species of fish, and like the, you know, what makes a sustainable catch, and like, you know, farming certain types of seafood, and he was just so into it, and I was like,
and that pulls you into it.
Yeah, you know, like
right, that pulls you into it. I went to this back in the day when I was like working a regular 9 to 5, so to speak. I had to go to this event, and I really wasn't vibing with the event, right? But they had this massive like oyster section, right? Now, mind you, I don't even eat oysters, but I gravitated to that section because the guy that was working the oyster area, they had maybe 5 different types of oysters. Rappahannock, Chesapeake, all these different types of oysters. I was like, all right, teach me about oysters. So he spent the time to teach me about that. You know, he was telling me how a lot of people just, you know, chuck it back and don't chew it. But the only way to really get the flavor of it and really get the essence of all the different waterways where these oysters are you know, produced, the only way to really get that is if you chew it. And then the mignonette sauce and all of that. So I was hanging out with this guy. I wasn't even worried about the work event, but we were able to just connect among that. And I was able to learn about something that otherwise, like, when was the next time I was going to be at an oyster bar? Just really soaking that in and soaking up that knowledge. So it really is a way to really kind of supersede a lot of, I love that. I don't know what it is, but I just love it. But it really is a way to supersede all of the other BS things that are going on. Like when you're talking about the politics, when you're talking about like socioeconomic issues, when you're talking about sexual orientation and gender and like all these issues that can be so divisive, religion. There's something about food that you can kind of just be. Like everybody can kind of just be. You know, and that's what I just respect about it so much. And I'm pretty sure, I feel like I can pretty much kind of just talk to anyone over food. Like, because we don't even have to agree. That's the thing. Like, we know that we don't have to agree on everything, right? So, I don't know. It's pretty dope. So, you started as a food blogger with your friend. Friend dipped out. You decided to stick with it. And it's been years, right?
Yeah, it's been 4.5.
Wow.
It'll be 5 in June, I think.
And what would you say, like, what have you learned the most? Like, what's the one thing that really sticks with you? Or if you go to a spot and you're checking out a place, like, what is it that keeps you doing it, I guess? Because sometimes you're eating alone. Like, you aren't always necessarily eating with folks, right?
That's very true.
So what keeps you going?
There's so many things, like, because I have complaints, but there's so many things that keep me coming back.
Right. Okay, so wait a minute. Let's get to a complaint first.
My complaints are truly petty. But my complaints are people not understanding how much work it takes. So sometimes people will, like, you know, invite me, and then they'll be very demanding, like, it's been 3 days, how come you haven't posted about it yet? And I'm like, I have a job.
Right.
So stuff like that, and then, like, you know, working with brands and all that stuff. So, you know, again, that's like the truly petty stuff. Like that's, you know, if I decided today that I would stop taking invitations or like add money, no, those would not be problems. But what keeps me doing it is the relationships I've built. Like, I feel like a couple of my closest friends that I just be like, hey girl, what are you doing today? I met through food blogging. Just I was like, hey, do you want to go out to eat with me? And now we're good friends. I also get to continue meeting people, like people that, let's say, and this has happened a few times, like I already follow them on YouTube, I already follow them on TikTok or Instagram, and I'm like, oh, they said that they're DMV based or that they're visiting the DMV. I'm like, hey, you want to come grab some to eat with me? I'll get content, you get content.
Right.
So that has been awesome. And then also just the opportunities and getting so much like access and stuff like that. Like, you know, you just get to go places that are just, yeah, people just don't get to go to all the time. That's really cool. Like I do, you know, tours of kitchens and, you know, I get all this like, these fun perks and
the access to it. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know? Like, yeah. And I get to meet some really, really, really nice people. Like I met Wolfgang Puck last week as well. He was so nice. Yeah.
So where do you think you want to take it from here? Like what do you I mean, because you still have your full-time gig. So what do you think, where do you think you want it to go? Or are you just really kind of open to whatever? Well, you tell me.
Yeah, I'm vibing. Like, I never really wanted, because I always wanted to have fun with it. And I feel like the minute I like become a food blogger, food influencer full time, it will stress me out. I know it will stress me out. And so I don't want to put that kind of pressure on it. I'm just having fun. I'm just going to continue with this and, you know, just see what happens. Like I'm super open-minded. Like I auditioned for a like to be the host of like a very local TV show. I didn't get it, but like I thought that was cool. Like I absolutely would have done it.
Right, just the opportunity to just try out for something like that. It wouldn't have come without this, probably.
Exactly, and that's that's really cool. So I was I love that, and then I did a project with Tastemade last summer. Tastemade and Visit Washington DC, which was also really cool. They, I did like an ad for them, and that was just really cool. Like I have no problem with that.
Right.
Yeah. So
you're just taking it as it goes. So how do you tell me this? How do you pick the spot that you're gonna just check out? Like, are there any types of like qualifications, or do you just do you look at reviews on it, or do you just say, I'm just going to check out this spot?
The number one thing as time goes on is like the number of invitations I get.
Okay.
I do get mostly invitations, so that takes up my time. And of course, just because I get invited somewhere doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna go.
Right.
There's some places that like they have like a huge marketing budget, so it's like they'll just invite you every week. Like they just, I'm not gonna keep going. Review the food a few times.
Right.
Get it. But I love, so I love doing that, and then I like going places that like you're always like, I go past there all the time. I wonder what's in there. Like I'm just literally not even a few days ago I was coming up this road and I was like, man, I really wish I could go in there. And I was telling you I never stop here because I didn't think there was anywhere to park.
Right. But neighborhood spots are like that. The places that don't have all of the money behind like marketing and pushing invitations out and all of that. Just neighborhood spots in an area like this, like you really just kind of have to wander in and just figure it out for yourself.
And like even now I have my eye on this place, and it's a vegan spot in Capitol Heights, and I've just been like, okay, the minute I get like a Saturday and I can walk in there and order like 3 or 4 dishes and just like go all in, but it's like on my list, and I have a running list of places like when I have an open weekend, or like if I have like a solid, because I do set aside money for eating, I don't just like spend recklessly.
That's your disclaimer.
Yes. So I'm like, oh, okay, like, you know, I have a little space in the budget this week.
Right.
Then I have a list of like, okay, what have I been meaning to hit up? So yeah, I do that too.
Cool.
Yeah. And I look at other bloggers too.
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
if another blogger is like raving about a spot, I'm like, okay.
Right, then you might check it out.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice when you are refreshing to see bloggers that are not just sticking to certain areas
No.
in a region, you know, like downtown, or, you know, they don't come to areas where it's, I shouldn't say more realistic, but just like regular folks, like just where regular folks,
accessible
accessible food.
Corner,
yeah. Or people might come after work or maybe on the weekends when they say, okay, you know, for the family, they're going to grab food out, just like a regular around the way spot. So it's always nice to have food bloggers that are just well rounded, you know, instead of sticking to certain demographics or areas where a lot of people, even though they might tune in and check them out on IG and everything, but might not even be able to afford to check that place out. You know? So it's always cool to see that. That's cool.
Yeah. So.
Well, sis, I'm glad to see you still doing your thing. I'm so glad we were able to just check out this spot. Now you have, I can't believe I brought you to a spot you have been to.
I know.
I get points for that, girl, off the break.
100% you do.
So I'm glad you enjoyed everything. But for real, Cornelia, thanks for just coming and hanging out and just sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor.
It's been cool.